The smell of sun-warmed fiber rises from coral baskets. The palm leaves above filter sunlight into wavering lattices that move with the air and paint the ground in patterns like quiet music. The heat still holds the street, but in here it is tamed to gentleness, as if the room had learned to teach the sun its manners. There is a kind of devotion in the care of water. Jars are not merely containers, they are trusted guardians whose rough, porous bodies allow the day to breathe out through them. A slow exchange that cools the liquid within. Fingers wet a strip of woven cloth and drape it across a beam, and the air that passes through becomes a whisper cooler, just enough to matter. People learn which corners of the home keeps the night's chill longest, which shelves do not scald the hand at noon. And there is a quiet ritual of moving the vessels from place to place as the sun wheels in the sky. An unheard choreography of survival that never needs explaining. You lift the cup and hold it for a moment to your cheek, feeling the radiated coolness, and you are grateful without needing to say the word. Later, when the light has turned to honey, there is a slow practice of washing the day away. At the riverbank, ankles enter the water first, then calves, then the long exhale that lowers the body until the heat unwinds from the spine and floats downstream. The skin remembers every thread of linen, every grain of dust, every bright blade of sun. Now the river teaches forgetting, the gentle letting go that belongs to evenings. Voices are low, laughter even lower, and the sound of oars tapping the surface is drawn out into long, delicate lines that the ear follows as if reading a letter out loud. The reeds lean towards one another like conspirators, whispering of cool currents and small fish silvering between their green legs. When night settles, rooftops becomes islands, and the world redistributes itself. Families gather on higher platforms, mats unrolled in careful rectangles that show, as maps do, where bodies will drift and dream. The air up here holds the city's breath in softer hands. The clay still exudes the day's warmth, but just enough to cradle the bones, not enough to press upon them. You listen to the slow assembling of constellations, and the stars take their time becoming bright, as if they, too, prefer a gradual entrance. Someone tells a story not so much to entertain as to measure the night. Sentences long and unspooling, pauses like shallow bays where the listeners can rest. Sleep comes in ripples. The first light goes when distant voices still rise and fall. The deeper quiet that follows when even the river becomes a low, steady murmur under the walls of the earth. Some nights, heat lingers like a guest who will not leave, and the body learns to bargain with it. A damp cloth on the wrist, the hollow of the throat, the inside of the elbow, a slow fan made from woven leaves that moves the air without hurrying it, so that the breeze does not feel invented but invited. Linen is shaken out to release sand and sun and spread again. A pale lake for the sleeper to float upon. You place your palm flat against the roof and feel the day stored there, fading like coals under ash. You think of the small exact kindnesses people learn in such a place. The careful saving of shadows, the deliberate making of coolness in a world that keeps so much warmth to itself. There are seasons to the heat, gradations you only learn from living here, like shades of a single color that a stranger would call simply red. There is the early summer, where the sun is still generous rather than stern, when breezes from the north arrive with a marine whisper, and gardens are cheerful places where cucumbers rest in bowls of river water, and mint crushes easily between thumb and forefinger. There is the high summer, an anvil in the sky, and the world reduces to essentials, shade and water, work and rest, quiet and patience, and there's a season of breath that follows. When the nights grow longer and dawn dew beads on reed mats like a secret the desert is willing to share, if you rise early enough to see it. People mark those changes not with dates, but with the way doors are left open or closed, the angle at which mat is hung, the precise time when children are called inside for the hush of midday. And then there is the flood, the long awaited pulse of the Nile that changes everything without hurrying anything. It comes like a persuasion the land has no reason to resist. The water rises patiently, one knuckle of stone at a time, and the banks accepts the river's embrace with the calm of old friends reunited. Heat becomes softened by the presence of such abundance. It does not cease, but it negotiates. People wade into fields that are no longer fields but shallow lakes of silt and sky. The scent of wet earth is not a scent at all, but a memory you can breathe, heavy and green and old. Houses watch their reflections tremble, palms double themselves on the surface, and boats appear in places that only months ago were pathways for feet. Work rearranges itself around the flood. What was difficult yesterday becomes easy today, and tasks that were simple requires new patience. Water carries coolness farther inland, and nights near the inundated fields hold a damp sweetness on the tongue. Women wash mats in water laced with mud. That will become tomorrow's walls and the next season's poles. Men measure not with instruments, but with the same eyes their grandfather used. This stone, that tree root, the mark on the pillar where the river rose in the year of the good grain filled every jar. Heat sits at the edge of the sea, present but no longer in command, like a supervisor who was chosen to watch from the shade. The world feels heavier and kinder, both at once. Rarely, a desert rain arrives, one of those soft and improbable visitors that the land receives with surprise and gratitude. The first drops are always the same, a faint tap on woven shame, then a cooler tap on skin. And the smell? The smell that is not easily named, a collision of dust and water that makes even the oldest among the people lift their faces to the sky like children. No one rushes to a shelter at the first moment. There is laughter that sounds like memory of something that happened once, long ago, to someone else with your same bones. The rain may last only the length of a story told in a low voice, and when it passes, the world is rearranged. Pools reflecting grayer skies, footprints filling with brief mirrors, a thin glaze of dampness tightening on the clay that will soon crack back into a map of the day's warmth. Most days, though, coolness is made rather than given. People go shade into existence the way a musician draws a melody from silence. Palm fronds becomes roofs that breathe. Reed panels swing from doorways to turn harsh brightness into a green gold glow where eyes can rest. A narrow alley is remembered as the place where noon never fully arrives, and errands are routed through it as if it were a thread of mercy stitched into the fabric of the town. Those who must travel far choose paths by the company of shadows, and a man will pause at noon to let his donkey stand in the triangle of coolness that looks too small to matter and yet matters entirely. You learn to read the day the way a scribe reads a scroll, right to the left, line by line, finding the places where the story says, "Here you may breathe." The making of linen is its own treaty with heat. It begins in the river with the bundles of flax soaking until stems surrender their inner threads. Then in courtyards, where the women rake and beat and comb fibers into softness that look like gathered clouds. The air in those places is pale with dust, and that is not dust but the beginning of cloth. A spindle hums steady, domestic music, and a thin line grows longer as if the day were being pulled out into something wearable. On the loom, threads cross in a patience that the sun cannot burn away, and the cloth that emerges is both a garment and a shade, a moving tent of cool air. When you put it on, it kisses the skin rather than clinging to it. And when a breeze comes, it finds its way beneath the hem and stays there a moment, as if resting from a journey. Food follows the season of the sun, not in ceremony, but in quiet invention. Cucumbers rest in shallow bowls of water in the shadowed part of the room. When sliced, they take a sip of shade. Dates are eaten slowly, sweetness stretched over minutes so the mind remembers abundance even when the day feels sparse. Lentils simmer at the edge of the hearth, never boiling hard, only soft enough to fall apart in the mouth. Flavored with garlic, crushed under a stone and a handful of herbs bruised between palms. Bread is torn and passed and dipped, and the salt on the tongue wakes the thirst just enough to make each drink necessary and delicious. Meals happen where the day allows, on the rooftops with the first stars waking, or deep within a room where the world narrows to a circle of hands and bowls in the intimacy of survival. Work that cannot wait for evening learns to move like water. Masons lift stones with gloved hands, and the calm of people who know that to rush is to lose. Carpenters fit joints in the shade, so that wood will not swell into stubbornness. Scribes sit with their backs to a cool wall where the day's heat thins. Reed pens pointed slightly away from the light to keep ink from drying too quickly on the tip. Fishermen time their launch to the breath of wind that often visits when the sun has just begun to relent. Sails catching a soft push that makes the boat slide forward like a thought you were about to have anyway. In all of this, there is no contempt for the sun, only an agreement. You are strong, and we will be wise. Children learn the language of heat in games that adults pretend not to notice. They find a cold seam between two mud brick walls and wedge themselves there like lizards. They carry a pebble from the shade to light and back again to see how long it takes to change its temperature. And they share the discovery as if it were a new song. Someone shows someone else how to dip a cloth in water and tie it around the neck in a knot that will rest the hollows of the throat, where the body keeps its own springs. They swim with their eyes open just enough to see the light cut into coins on the river floor. And when they come up, their eyelashes are jeweled with small droplets that make them look like creatures of the water for a quick moment. Their laughter is not loud but bright, and it has the power to cool a courtyard by 1 or 2 degrees, which is to say by everything. Animals use their wisdom. Cats conduct long interviews with patches of shade and select, without apology, the most articulate one. Dogs dig shallow beds in dust that has not seen the sun since the last evening and lie down with a sigh that is more philosophy than fatigue. Goats stand in a shared shadow as if queuing for grace. Birds take turns bathing in shallow bones placed under eaves, hopping in and out with quick little shivers that send droplets flashing into the air, where they evaporate before they land, as if the day were drinking too. There is a particular hour before dusk when the river looks like a road, not because it invites you to walk upon it, but because it leads the eye and the mind both to the far places and then brings them home gently by the same path. Boats move along it without seeming to move, a slow motion that matches the pulse in your wrist. The voice that carry over its surface are changed by water into rounder sounds. Vowels held, consonants softened, nets are drawn in with the quiet grunts of work well done but not yet finished.